Good morning, good evening, wherever you're at. This is your favorite podcast. I'm Al, and this is Will.
Hello.
And this is Grace. And both Will and I, and sometimes Grace, know absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Today, we have some very special and dear guests with us. We have the Velez family. We have Chino. We have Liz, and we have Matthew, BamBam, Velez. Welcome to Will and Al, and sometimes Grace, know nothing. So for our audience that doesn't know you at all, why don't you introduce yourselves and who you are, what you do, a little bit about your background. Chino, Liz, that's you guys.
Let's kick it off, Liz. The boss goes first, right? Go ahead. Want to be a boss?
Yeah,
Be a boss
you
now.
better.
Let's go.
Hello, I'm Liz, and I am Matthew's mother.
Mhm.
And we are a jiu-jitsu family. We all train together. And that's pretty much who I am.
Chino?
I'm Chino Velez. I'm Matthew BamBam's dad. I'm one of the head instructors of Zombie BJJ, Jiu-Jitsu in Allentown. And we live the Jiu-Jitsu life. That's all we do is Jiu-Jitsu every day.
You live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle.
Exactly. That's all we do.
Got it. And oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce one other person. Someone that our audience may already know. It's my son, Gabriel Slothman. Gabriel, why don't you wave hello to the audience?
I'm Gabriel Slothman.
We kind of know each other. And BamBam, Matthew.
Hey, my name is Matthew BamBam, 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I do jiu-jitsu.
Right. So would you mind giving our audience a little bit of background on your credentials in jiu-jitsu?
Well, I first started doing jiu-jitsu when I was 4 years old. My dad, he went to his friend's gym. His friend just opened the gym too. And my dad just went to try it out and he fell in love with it. And then he told me about it. And that's how I started getting into jiu-jitsu. And then later on, my dad is my coach now. And now he teaches me everything now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Chino, would it be fair to say, and Liz, that Matthew more than likely is the most decorated child grappler alive? Maybe
A lot of people think that. We would never say that just because, you know, there's always someone out there. There's always kids that are working. There's always kids that are training. There's a lot of kids that maybe don't have the financial means to travel and come to some of the bigger tournaments. But yes, I mean, since Matthew started competing, he has over the years he has been able to accomplish a lot on the jiu-jitsu scene.
Right. So my audience, our audience, I should say, probably a lot of them aren't really sure what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is as opposed to Japanese jiu-jitsu and what it is and like why it's important. So maybe you guys can enlighten our audience as to what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is.
To me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's a joint manipulation martial art. We specialize in any joint in the body to be able to, some way, somehow, to be able to manipulate that joint by, in other means, breaking that joint.
So it's about breaking bones.
Not about. Then that's the specialty.
Sounds pretty
breaking
violent.
Joints. That's the specialty. Breaking joints. But no, we don't break bones. And it's
Okay.
there's a lot of throws, there's a lot of lapel stuff, there's chokes, but the purpose of the art is mainly joint manipulation.
Okay.
Compared to different arts where they specialize in kicking, in punching, or doing katas, or breaking boards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's different than karate. It's different from boxing. It's different from kickboxing because there's no striking involved.
Also,
Which
of course, yes.
most people most people, when they think of like martial arts, like my son is wearing his Bruce Lee shirt, you know, they think of like Bruce Lee punching and kicking people. But what they don't realize is that Bruce Lee arguably is the inventor of mixed martial arts, because his background was in Chinese Kung Fu, because he came from China and Hong Kong. And then when he came to the United States back then, like Muhammad Ali was, you know, everybody's idol. So he learned how to box. He learned kickboxing from Thailand. He learned fencing, which is sword play. He learned Kali and Eskrima, which are Filipino martial arts. He learned judo, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling from someone like Jean LaBelle. And he could do everything fairly well. He also was one of the first people to do like strength and conditioning with weights back in the 60s, when nobody did that. Juicing, all sorts of things. So he was a kind of like a health nut, and he was way ahead of his time. Things that are kind of commonplace today, Bruce Lee did. So when people think of martial arts, they think of him, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, from what I understand, was sort of created by the Gracie family back in the early 20th century. And they learned this art from a Japanese person. And I think it was Carlos and Helio Gracie. They modified the Japanese form of Jiu-Jitsu so that even a smaller person like Helio Gracie, who I think weighed about 120 pounds, could do against much bigger, much larger opponents. And what Chino, Liz, I, Will, and the boys do is the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is different than street Jiu-Jitsu. Street Jiu-Jitsu is for the streets. It's self-defense. We're not falling to our back and pulling guard in the street, you know, because you can't do that on the cement. There might be multiple opponents. There might be weapons involved, like a knife or a stick or a rock or who knows what. So I really want our audience to understand also that it's really for self-defense. It came from the samurai, which, you know, samurai means servant, and they were servants of the people. And it's part of, you know, sword play. It's also part of long sword, short sword, spear. You know, you had to know a variety of things that when you're on the battlefield that you can do. So then it became jiu-jitsu, which is just what we do. And Matthew, like I said, is one of the most decorated children in the world. And what I wanted to focus on was not so much the art of jiu-jitsu per se, although it's an incredible art form, but really more about what happens when a family, a mother, a father, and a son align and do something that's incredibly difficult together, and really what that's like and what that creates. And I'll assert that what that creates is someone like Matthew, who's a 5-time Pan American, arguably world champion. And maybe you could share a little bit about like your backgrounds, about how you grew up, because you were sharing that with me a couple of weeks ago. And both me and my wife were really, really, you know, moved by your stories. Liz, maybe you could start first and give me a little bit about your family background, where you're from. Like, your family's from Peru, correct?
Yes. So, well, I grew up in Allentown, and I pretty much lived here. I lived here all my life. When I was younger, you know, we didn't have the opportunities that the kids have nowadays. Didn't always have the support from family members to be able to go and to, you know, play a sport or to go to those extracurricular activities where that, I guess, I don't know, that's like maybe my drive with my kids has always been to be supportive and to make sure that they can get to practices and make sure that I'm involved and, you know, show them the love and support for whatever they choose to do.
And you met Chino when you were how old?
I was 13.
You were the boy's age when you met Chino. How did you guys meet?
Oh gosh, this is a funny story. I don't know if I want this out there.
Well,
you
make
could
it
edit some of this
PG
stuff.
at least.
Oh, some of this stuff could be edited out, right?
Sure.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't care, but I was on a 10-day school suspension for fighting.
Oh, really? So
Yes.
someone had a bad temper.
Somewhat.
Okay. It was against the girl, I presume, not a boy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, all right. Got it. And so you were on a 10-day suspension. And what happened?
At my friend's house, and Chino, he was friends with my friend's boyfriend. So I was at her house, like I said, on a 10-day school suspension, and he came to pick her boyfriend up for work, and that's how we ended up meeting.
Oh, dropping him off from work.
Yeah.
You were dropping him off.
Yeah,
Got it. And so how old were you at the time?
I was 16 when I met Liz.
Okay, got it. So she was 13, you were 16. Oh, okay. So you're worried about like what, statutory rape? I don't think it'll matter. You guys been
I still had 2 years.
Not at 16.
I had 2 more years to get in trouble.
Oh, you already looked up the statute of limitations.
Yeah,
All right.
make sure I was
So,
okay, bro.
what happened? You saw Liz for the first time. What went through your head?
She was a beautiful young lady.
Right. Did you know how old she was?
No, not at the
Did
time.
you care?
Well, I couldn't get in trouble. I wasn't minding myself, so I couldn't get in trouble. But obviously, if she would have been 12 or 11, then it would have been a different case. Obviously, I'm like, yo, you're too young. But I didn't even think she was 13 at the time. I thought she was 14.
Well, she's probably 13, 14. She's probably very mature because she was already like taking
Yeah.
care. And what's your background? Like, how did you grow up?
Well, a little bit like Liz, grew up. I was living on my own. I had my own place with my brother. At age 15, 14, we already had I had my own car. I was living on my own at 14, 13.
Yeah.
Where were you at this time? Allentown as well?
I was in Allentown, yes.
When I met him, he was renting a room.
Wow.
We grew up in a different era than today. Like these kids nowadays, 13-year-olds, they can't even wipe their own butts.
Yeah.
At 13
No.
years old, back in my days, I had a car. Everything was illegal, obviously. You couldn't buy a car legally. The apartment was illegal. The car was illegal. Everything in our lives was illegal at that time.
Hard times creating
So
hard men.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, like what was going on at home that led you to move out on your own at such a young age?
Well, my mom and my dad, they weren't together at the time. My mom and my dad, they were split up. My mom, we went to Newark, New Jersey for a couple of years.
Oh.
We was going crazy over there. And then obviously my mom, she thought either we were going to get killed or going to go to jail in Jersey at 12 years old. So then she tried to take us out of Jersey and she brought us over here to Allentown.
Okay.
We went to live in my aunt's house in the Cumberland Gardens.
Okay.
That was like one of the projects from back in the days.
Mhm.
Then we came down here and
Your mom wanted to move back to Puerto Rico.
my mom wanted to move back to Puerto Rico, and then me and my brother, we chose not to go back with her, and we just started living on our own at that age. My brother was 15 and I was 14 at the time,
Right.
and we're just
So-
doing crazy. Go ahead.
What was Newark, New Jersey like when you were 12 years old? What kind of things were happening?
Back in the early 90s, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I don't know.
What?
People getting robbed, drugs. It was just that was like the end of the crack era. It
Yeah.
was crazy. It was those times were crazy. And we were doing a lot of crazy things too. That didn't help either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so,
So
then
my
you
mom-
moved to Allentown. Was it any
Yes.
better?
So my mom tried to get us out of Jersey because we were going crazy over there. And then we came down here and literally a few months later, I seen Liz and met her.
So, but what was Allentown like when you met, right around the time you met Liz when you were 16? What was that like?
It was nice. It was actually nice. The same atmosphere because you go, right? They always say you go from one ghetto to another ghetto. So it's not like, don't matter where you go. If you go to one ghetto, go to another one, the negativity is going to follow you. So it doesn't get any better. You go from one negative environment to another negative environment, and it's like a revolving cycle. It's not gonna change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to be in
Yeah.
you for you to change. If you're doing
Right.
bad things, you move to another state, you're still gonna do doing bad things.
Mhm.
So the real ghetto is inside of your heart.
Well, I think
Programming.
at that age, you
You
know,
don't think-
you don't think you're at
Right.
that age that, you know, you're invincible, you think you're invincible. But when I met him, then I think we were able to, you know, change our ways, both of us. Like, not that he was like a horrible person, no, but you know, when you're young and you know, you think you know it all and you want to live on
Yeah.
the streets, you know, you just don't always make the right choices.
How did you make money
He worked,
to support yourself? Construction, or what did you do?
forklift operator,
Yeah, warehouse.
warehouse work.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what about you, Liz? Like,
I was in middle school.
you were in middle school.
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
amazing. So you guys started dating,
Mhm.
and how long before you two like were an item, and then what happened?
So we had our first child when I was 15.
Okay.
And then you know I went, you know, everybody was like, oh, you're gonna quit school, you know, you're not gonna do anything with your life, you're pregnant now, you know, you just threw your life away. And I was like, well, if
Statistic.
this happened doesn't mean that I can't, you know, do something with myself. So I just made it a point. I was going to finish school. I went to high school. I was able to finish high school. I went to college.
Well,
I was
you
a
were telling me a story about how you used to take your son to high
Mhm.
school, and then you took him to college. Can you share with the
Oh
audience a little bit
yeah.
about
So
that?
when I was in high school, he was working. So I would get on the bus. I would go all the way to get on the bus with our first child, get to the daycare, from the daycare, walk to school, from school. Sometimes like in 2 hours, they would call me, be like, oh, he's crying, or oh, he's sick. So I would have to leave, go back, pick him up, catch the bus again. It was a lot of, you know, it was a lot
Yeah.
of, it wasn't easy at that young age. You know, we didn't have a car, I don't think, at that time. No, we were taking the bus. Well, no, yeah,
I had a car.
you
but
had a car,
to
but you
work.
were going to work. But it wasn't easy. And then when I started college, it was a lot easier, I should say, because he was able to come with me to school. They had like a little program at the college. So when I graduated, he got like a little diploma that he graduated from, you know,
Okay.
where I graduated from college. But it was
Yeah.
a lot easier. So I would be able to, you know, go have lunch with him when I had lunch break, you know, when I wasn't in class. So it was a lot easier at that time. But that's why we waited so long to have Matthew. Once I graduated college, then I started working. And then after that, then it was like, okay, well, it's not the right time now. It's not the right time now. And then eventually we're like, all right, well, we gotta, you know, if we're gonna have another child, we gotta do it. So yeah, that's how Matthew came along. There's a
Chino.
huge age difference.
Yeah, because your other
26.
son's in his 20s.
26 and 13.
Yeah. Chino, weren't you also considering becoming a professional boxer at one point?
I did amateur boxing as I was young. I did amateur boxing from when I was like 7 to like 11, 12.
He was really good.
I was actually really young.
He was really good. From all the stories I hear.
Yeah, could have, should have, would have, but I chose I chose bad things.
So how old were you when you?
I think I would have did great, right? I was doing
Yeah.
boxing here. I won the Syracuse games in New York, which back in the
Oh,
days, the
that's a big
Syracuse
deal.
game, that was
That's a big
big back
deal.
for us,
Yeah.
back in our days.
Yeah.
That was big. I don't know how it is now, but the Syracuse games was big back in our times, in my times. I
Yeah.
won that tournament. I won it. We went with 7 boxing. There were 7 of us from Allentown. And every single kid except for one kid won the games. Every single one, except for one teammate. So we had a really good, solid crew back in those days. His name was BamBam. He was our coach, but he was actually my Liz's coach. Literally 13 years later, he wound up being Liz's boxing coach too.
Oh. Well, Liz, you boxed too? I didn't know you boxed.
Yeah.
Got it.
She had a couple amateur boxing fights.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's
she did.
amazing. That's beautiful. So how did you hear about jujitsu?
Jiu-jitsu, that was like years
What year?
later. I actually started in the Japanese arts. I started doing American Kempo, Aikido,
Mm.
and Jiu-Jitsu. It's like it's supposed to be
Japanese.
like Jiu-Jitsu is like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, but it's
Yeah.
it's mainly more judo than anything else. It's
Okay.
mainly all throws. Very
Okay.
little submissions. Most of it is throws,
Right.
like judo.
What year was that?
That was in 14 years ago.
Like 14.
14 years ago.
2007.
Yeah, 14, 15 years ago. I did that for a couple of years.
Okay.
I didn't really like Aikido. I'm not gonna say I just didn't like the not really like, I was used to boxing where you hit me, I hit you, and it's like
Yeah.
hands hard, and you
Yeah.
can't fake that. You punch
Yeah.
me, I'm gonna punch you.
Pressure
You know,
testing.
yes.
Yeah.
Aikido, your partner has to let you do the move. There's no
Yeah.
resistance.
There's a name
But-
for that. Do you know the name of that? I forgot the
sorry.
name. There's a term for you not giving resistance as a partner in Aikido.
Yeah, so
You're saying, what, do you remember the term?
I don't remember the term, but it's like I did it for a couple of years because there was no jujitsu in our area. I looked for my goal was to do jujitsu. The only closest things to jujitsu was that Aikido school that did a little bit of jujitsu, and that just wasn't satisfying me. I went to a grand opening, to a Gracie Academy grand opening. A few years later, there was a grand opening
Okay.
for jiu-jitsu school. I went to it. The instructor kicked my ass, and I was like,
What was that
230.
like? Because you're such a tough guy.
It was.
Wow.
It opened, like I said, I want to be able to what this little guy did. My mindset was, I want to
So
be able
you're-
to what.
Well,
I
hold on,
wanna
hold
be
on.
able to
You
do-
were
I was 230 pounds at the time. Diesel. I was doing
and how much did
bench
he
press.
weigh?
The guy was the head instructor.
How much did he weigh?
And this guy, you know him. The head rep for Naga, Shane Mock. You know him, Shane. The head rep for Naga. For him, he opened up a school up here in Allentown about 14 years ago. They did the grand opening. I went.
Okay.
We did some live rounds. I told them I got a little bit of experience in boxing and Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, and the dude rolled me up like a pretzel. He just beat me up.
Right.
And I couldn't believe a guy my size. He was literally like 170 pounds at the most, and he just whooped my ass throughout the whole. He just whooped my ass. And I said, when I left from there, I said, I want to be able to do what you did to me to anybody else. Because he just wasn't even really trying. He would just tear me up. No matter what I did and how strong I was, I couldn't do anything to him.
How long into training after you started did you bring Matthew to start training?
Well, that was, so it
About
was
2
a
years
funny
later.
story because when Chino started training jujitsu, he was training under Shane, because that was the first school that opened up.
The school closed a year
Then
later.
the school ended up closing down like a year
And a half
or
later.
two, like a year or two later. And that's where Jeremy Lee Henderson came in.
My
Jeremy
current
Lee had
instructor.
moved from Texas and moved out here and opened up a school. So he took over that school.
He took over the lease.
So Chino
We
started
didn't even know.
training under Jeremy Lee Henderson, which is under Hobson Mora.
Oh, okay.
So when Chino was training there, Jeremy had a son. His name is Dallas, and he would say, bring your son in to
So
come
we
and
could start a
train,
kids
so
program.
we can have him train with my son. And in the very
Because
beginning,
his son had no one to train with.
yeah, at that time, because they had just moved here from Texas. He had just opened up the school. He was just trying to build the school up at that point because he had just moved here.
So
One of his first students was Chino.
That was his first
And
student.
there was like maybe a couple other guys. There was like a handful of guys that were at the old school
They stood there.
prior to Jeremy taking over. So then they just stayed on with
Good deal.
Jeremy, and then they started building up. But then, so when he kept saying like, "Oh, bring your son," and I would go and watch Chino sometimes, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if he's ready yet. He's only like 4 years old." And he's like, "No, you got to bring him in so he can train with my son." So by the time he was like 4.5, I was like, "All right, let's let him try it out." So then that's how Matthew started training, and he would train like maybe 2 days a week. I think at that time classes were only like 45 minutes each. And I was like, well, let's see how he does. Let's see. Because, you know, usually kids that are at 4.5 years old, they're not really like, attention span is not there. The focus is not there. But I will tell you, Matthew started training at 4.5, and he never stopped training since. He's been
Matt, do you remember, Matthew, do you remember like the first couple times training at the school? What
Yeah.
it was like?
I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It was just,
Try.
it was, I don't know.
So you remember being, were there a lot of kids, or it was like you
No,
and
there
one
was
other
only a
kid?
couple kids. There was only a couple kids. There weren't many that kids.
How long before you were training before you did your first tournament?
I think it was in 2013. I did my first tournament.
Okay.
2013.
Wait, so you were
I was
5?
Yeah, 5 years old.
And do you remember being nervous, or like, was it a Naga? What was it?
It was I think it was a new breed.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
He remembers.
It's always new breeds.
Yeah.
When I was when I was younger, we always did new breeds.
New breed was pretty popular back
Okay.
when
Nagas
Matthew
and
first
Nagas
started training.
and Nagas.
Right. And did you win?
Yes, I won. Yep.
Got it. How long before he started training and doing tournaments did you like, hey, this kid's got something here?
Honestly, like when Matthew started training, like I thought, because I seen other kids, obviously, like in martial arts, like me growing up, like you know, I actually did Taekwondo for a little while. My brother did Taekwondo for a little while. And then, you know, just being around the martial arts, growing up a little bit, you know, you see there's certain kids that are just there because they think it's fun. You know, the parents really, like, they think it's great for the kids to learn discipline and, you know, to just try to learn how to be focused and just be able to do something. Well, Matthew, it was always a little different. He always was just like natural, picking things up. Like he was able to, he would show him a move. Like at that time when Matthew first started, he wasn't the kids coach. There was another coach that was helping out, that was coaching the kids. And it's like, they just show Matthew a move and Matthew would just like pick it up. And then Matthew would go to tournament and then Matthew would just be like hitting the moves. So sometimes you can like show somebody something, right, and they can learn a move, but they don't like incorporate that into like when they're rolling. Matthew has always been able to just put those things together where it doesn't come naturally for some people. With Matthew, it always came natural. He was just able to put it together.
In a live situation, like live rolling, Matthew's able to do the moves. Because you know how it is now when you train. When you drill a move, the move, you can learn it, no problem. The problem is how to actually do it in a situation where the other guy's fighting you and telling you he's not gonna let you do it. That's completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember, and Gabe, you can back me up on this if you don't mind. So we met, the first time we met you guys, we were in Langhorne. There was a no time limit, submission only tournament.
It was a good fight.
Good fight.
Good fight. Yeah. Yes.
And so I remember, so before the tournament started, being on the mat, warming Gabe up. Gabe just got his yellow belt. And I remember you and Matthew were next to us and you were warming him up and he was doing like some pretty advanced stuff. And I was like looking out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, that's pretty advanced, you know? And then I remember when they were both the same size, right? More or less, them going up against each other. And Gabe, what was that like for you? Like the first time that you went against Matthew in a tournament?
I don't really remember. It's been a while.
Well, obviously you were like 7.
Yeah, I remember that day I went against Matthew and Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy. Yeah, Tommy Boy is also like the Pan American champion.
Yeah. I got third that day. I knew I got beat.
You got what?
Said I got third that day. I know I got beat bad. That
Yeah,
day.
you got third. Yeah.
Yeah, I went
You didn't
against
do too
Matthew
good.
and Tommy Boy. That was not my day that day.
But what was it like? Like, because you've done pretty well in a lot of other tournaments. I think you were like pretty much undefeated up until that point, and then you lost to Matthew and to Tommy. So you remember what that was like for you?
I honestly don't remember the matches.
You don't remember? Do you remember any other times that you faced Matthew, like that one time in Wildwood in the Naga?
Yeah, I remember like I was getting like so excited and so hyped just like to go with him. And we had some good matches. But he has been like a really good opponent. You know,
A really big what?
Really good opponent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt. So you guys you were kind of like frenemies, right?
Yeah.
And then what shifted was when me and you went out to Los Angeles to compete in 2017 in the Pan American Championships for kids, which basically it's the World Championships in Jiu-Jitsu.
It is.
Yeah,
Indeed.
they don't call it that, but it is.
It's the biggest tournament that a kid could do in the gi worldwide.
World,
There's
yeah.
nothing else.
That's why all the kids call it the kids' world, the gi world, because kids from all over the world come to it.
Right. So I remember seeing him compete, and you competed, and after that, like we became friends, and then after that, that's when you started training up in Allentown, correct?
Yeah, we started training in Allentown like middle of 2020.
Yeah.
Was it really? Okay, got
It
it.
was like
Because
the beginning to the middle of 2020 we started.
If you know
Okay.
Amari Payton, right? Amari Payton. Amari. You know Amari, Al. You know Amari.
Okay, if you say so.
Amari.
You know Amari, but I called Amari and he wanted to come over to train. And then I talked to my dad, and then so many people just started like to join the Saturdays class. Because before that, I was just training with my drilling partners on a Sue and Ma, that's their names.
Yeah.
And we just did privates, and then more people started joining. And then
Right. So for our audience that doesn't know, what Liz and Chino do is, I'd say the top 3 or 4 best, I'd say top 3 best, depending on how you're looking at it, kids competition classes every Saturday. And they get the best kids that come pretty much from all over the United States. People have come as far as Texas, Oklahoma, maybe California, Virginia, Delaware, Philadelphia, New York, Connecticut. All the kids are decorated either
Canada.
Pan Am champion, world champion, multiple time Pan Am champion, NAGA advanced expert champion, you name it. And it's a shark. What do they call that? A shark?
Like Shark
Tank.
It's a Shark Tank. Yeah, it's a Shark Tank. And I remember when I first started taking Gabriel up there, he was getting his butt whooped. He was getting whooped.
I hated
it. What's that?
In the beginning, I hated going.
You love us.
He would actually cry. We'd take him on Saturday. He would start crying Friday, anticipating the ass whooping he was going to get on Saturday. Whether it was from BamBam or the other kids, he was just getting his lunch handed to him, his ass hand it to him. And he was crying, Dad, I don't want to go, Dad, I don't want to go. I go, this is how you get better. You know, if you want to be the best, you have to train with the best. And you have to adapt their mentality, their ways of looking at things, their training, everything. So could you share what that was like, Gabriel?
I mean, it took a while for me to actually like get up there with the other kids because they started a lot like more like before me, and it just like as soon as I got up to like the point where we were just going back and forth, like maybe one match they would get me, the other I would get them. It was just like that's like the fun part. That's like really fun. That's like what I enjoy now. It's like,
So what was the difference between like training up in Allentown on Saturdays and then going back to your regular jiu-jitsu school during the week to train?
I feel like it's almost like just all the other times of the week, it just feels like mini classes of Allentown. Like, cause Allentown's like 3 or 4 hours on Saturdays, and
Yeah, it would be from 9:30 to like 1:30, 2 o'clock.
yeah,
Half gi, half no gi.
like it has like no, it can't compare to like the days I trained on the week to Allentown, because like
Well, how is it different for our audience that doesn't know?
huh.
How would our audience know the difference? Like how could you describe it? What was it like in Philadelphia as opposed to, you know, Allentown?
In Philly, it was just like maybe like a 45-minute class, you know, just normal training. But in Allentown, you got a whole hour for warm-ups, an hour for training, an hour for everything. Like,
So it was like the difference between training with people that are hobbyists and people that want to become world champions.
yeah.
And also, I think at the time, Matthew was homeschooled.
No,
No,
I
I
was
think
never homeschooled.
He was
No,
I was never homeschooled.
I thought you were. But you also do, on top of the jiu-jitsu training, you also do wrestling.
Yeah.
And you also do strength and conditioning. Would you mind sharing with the audience what that's like, the schedule?
Well, so first I do strength training. After strength training, jujitsu. Next day, another strength training, jujitsu. I take days off from wrestling. Wait. Wait.
like 2 days a week of
No,
wrestling.
wait, no. I do jujitsu, and then one day a week I only do wrestling. I only do wrestling one day a week.
2
Do you have
Twice
your
a
own
week.
private
Twice,
wrestling?
twice.
In the
Do
off
you have your
season.
own private?
off season.
Do you have your own private wrestling coach?
No, I wrestle for a team.
Okay.
His school team.
School team.
What about the strength and conditioning? What's that consist of?
Excuse me.
What does your strength and conditioning consist of? Like, what does that look like? You know, because you're 13 years old. Are you like benching 500 pounds?
Yeah, I'm
Like,
benching.
what are you doing exactly?
You know, it's more
And what's the goal of
mobility.
it?
It's strength training helps me out with wrestling and jiu-jitsu. So
But
like,
he's saying like, what do you do at strength training? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're not lifting like 500
No.
pound weights. Like, what are you doing?
yeah, mobility stuff that I
Mobility.
do for jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
Okay. Well, listen, some of our audience members maybe can't even tie their shoes. I don't know. You know, this isn't a jiu-jitsu podcast. This is a podcast, you know, where we get different types of audiences, and we'd like to move, touch, and inspire and inform people. So, you know, we can't presume anything, you know? So, you know, really what we're sharing isn't about jiu-jitsu or wrestling or strength training. It's about really what's possible when a family focuses and aligns on, you know, a goal. And your goal, once you guys realize that Matthew had a lot of talent, you know, talent is one thing, but determination and training every day and, you know, like that's what makes a champion. Could you share a little bit about?
Of course. Well, Matthew, like Matthew loves the challenge. He loves a challenge. And anybody that knows Matthew knows that Matthew loves to be challenged. He gets a kick out of being challenged. Like, if you tell Matthew he can't do something, he's gonna show you that he can do it. So when Matthew, like, that's why I think it comes so natural for him. training, working out, going to wrestling, doing these things. He enjoys it because he's always getting challenged.
Yeah.
And, you know, he has a schedule, but at the same time, we give him a little bit of space sometimes too when he needs it. Like when he wrestles, yes, he wrestles for a school team, but it's in the off season when it's not wrestling season, he's only wrestling 2 days a week.
Right.
And then he'll do jujitsu the other days. And then he does his strength and conditioning 2 days a week. So it's not like every single day
doing
he's
multiple.
doing like 3 practices a day. Some days, yes, he might have strength training, some jujitsu technique,
wrestling.
and then go to wrestling.
Right.
But that's not like that every day. And then
Right.
there's some classes that are easier, and then there's some classes that are harder. Some classes that he's going to get pushed more, some classes that he's not as pushed, or some classes that he'll just do technique, and some classes that he's doing technique and rolling. So we try to balance it out for him.
Can I
What
have
what
a
am I?
question real fast?
Yeah.
Al? If you don't mind.
No. of course.
And you continue your question, of course. Hey, Matt, I have just a suggestion and a question at the same time. And you too, Gabe, and everyone else listening, of course. When we answer questions, for me personally, I get awkward and weird because I don't know how to answer questions sometimes, but we could change that mindset to, how old are you, Matt? How old are you?
I'm 13.
You're 13. Okay. So what I like to think of it when I answer a question is, how would I answer this question to a friend of mine that is 13 as well, or 12, whatever friends you have? How would you answer that question to that person? Don't worry about the adults, and you know what I mean? Maybe that is troubling you with getting the answer, if you know what I mean. But the question I wanted to ask you in reference to that is, how would you explain to your to your friends in school or anywhere, your cousins, your family members that are your age, what jiu-jitsu is, or what strength training is, or what you train in general? So to focus on one question, how would you explain what you do when it comes to training to your friends? If they ask you, hey, Matt, what do you do, man? You look like, if they ever saw you train through YouTube, Instagram, anywhere, they're like, bro, you're like kicking ass out there. Excuse my French, but
Right.
how are you kicking butt? Like, how are you owning these other kids out there? How would you answer that?
Right. That's a good question. Really good.
Okay. I just tell them, it's hard. You gotta work hard. It doesn't come easy to you.
It's okay. No, if that's what you tell them,
It's
you know
hard
what I
to
mean?
explain.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
hard.
It's kind of hard.
It's kind of hard to explain because they don't just come up to me and I usually have to show them because they don't know. Most of the people, they don't even know that I do jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't bring it up.
If you don't bring it up,
they've
they
never seen you.
So like that actually leads me to something really important. Like, right now, child obesity is at an all-time high. And, most kids, all they do is play video games, and they're not using their bodies. Also, a lot of schools don't have even like regular gym classes. And so I guess all of you, I'm gonna ask all of you the question, like, what's your view of that? How would jujitsu make a difference in the lives of kids and parents? Maybe it's something they could do together that would make a difference for the family.
Like one of the, I would like to say something like, I feel like there is a lot of kids that are putting too much focus into playing video games or sitting at home or wanting to hang out with friends. And just from when I was growing up, I know that when I was in school, when I had too much time on my hands, I seemed to get myself into trouble. So I'd rather the kids be doing something that they can focus on, that they can be proud of, that they can be getting some, they can exercise, they can do something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be jujitsu, but jujitsu, obviously that's what we do. We love it. And that's, I love that Matthew loves it. But that I think keeps kids out of trouble. I think it keeps kids from sitting behind a computer all day, playing video games. It keeps them from wanting to hang out too much with their friends, because when they're hanging out with their friends, they have too much time on their hands, they can get themselves into trouble. So I think jujitsu or wrestling or doing some kind of martial arts, I think keeps them busy. I think that they're helping to keep themselves healthy. They're doing something. They're not sitting on their phones or playing video games. They're actually out there learning and doing something constructive with themselves.
So, you know, maybe you could say something also. I don't know if Matthew's encountered bullies in his school, or Matthew, have you ever been bullied before?
No, I've never been bullied before. But I have some occasionally kids try pushing you in the hallway, and that's,
Yeah.
you know.
So how did you handle that?
Well, so a kid pushed me, and
Yeah.
then it went into a fight.
Oh, you got in a fight?
Yeah, from
Oh, what happened?
from kids like trying to like push you around.
So
And
what did the fight consist of? Did he try to swing on you or push
No,
you? Or like,
he just pushed me,
okay.
and then I took him down, and then he got back up, and then he tried hitting me, and like I went back, and then I hit him in the face.
Okay. But you didn't hurt him?
No.
No, but you got in trouble?
Yes, I got in trouble.
Got it. All right. So Gabe, I remember when you were in grammar school and you were going to school right near our house, and there was a couple times when you were the new kid and you got bullied too. Can you share with the audience what that was like?
Okay. So you're talking about crossing, right?
Yeah.
So like, I wasn't never bullied really, but there was kids that were like getting messed with and stuff, or arguing, and I'll like try to like step into it, and like, I don't know. So there was this one time where this kid was arguing with a girl, and I just go over them because I was kind of friendly with the boy, and they're arguing, and I was like, I think I went over, and I was just seeing what's going on, and I think the boy got mad at me because I stepped in or something, and he tried to like take me down, and then like, I don't remember what happened, but I think he tried to like take me down or something, and I like pushed him or something. That's really all I remember because the teacher came over.
Well, okay, so I remember there was a one time when there was one boy that was getting picked on by another boy, and all the kids, instead of like breaking up the fight, they all took out their cell phones and started recording it. And to keep the boy from getting beat up by the other boy, you stepped in between to act as peacemaker. And someone didn't take too kindly to that. And from what I recall, I think they took a swing on you. And you took that person down, took their back, and held them until someone came, but you could have put a chokehold on them. In other words, I think in that day you disabled two people, and you disabled them without throwing a punch, without throwing a kick or anything. And you were telling me about it, and I said, wow, you know, Gabe, I'm really proud of you because you were able to, you know, de-escalate something. You didn't use violence, you controlled the situation. And, you know, for a lot of parents, you know, they want their kids to learn self-defense, but the problem is that, you know, if they learn like a striking art, and, you know, the kid hits another kid in the face or kicks them or something, even though they're practicing self-defense, because your child hit the other child, he's going to get, or she's going to get suspended from school. And what if that other child really does get hurt? Not so much from the strike, but if they hit the ground or they hit the wall or they hit their head, you know, they get a concussion, who knows what. The beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, that's why it's called the gentle art. It's really the art of peace. You know, we have the ability using the clench and holds to render the other person useless. And Chino was giving an example when he went to that jiu-jitsu school. You know, here's a guy that boxed and is really big and strong, and really none of those skill sets made any difference. As soon as a person closed the distance on him, took him down, and as soon as they take him down, it's like a fish out of water.
Game over.
You know? So game over. And, you know, so I think it's really effective for, as a form of anti-bullying. Also, you know, if you're a person that trains a lot every day, and, you know, and someone pushes you or someone throws a punch at you or something like that, you know, you're so used to dealing with people that actually know how to fight, that when someone does that to you in the street or at school, you're used to the physical contact. You don't get panicked. So much of what, you know, confrontation is, in my opinion, is fear. You know, your fear sets in. And when your fear sets in, you know, you get into fight or flight. But if you're someone that trains a lot in martial arts, jiu-jitsu, whatever, you're used to understanding your own psychology when it comes to confrontation. Can you guys share a little bit about that?
To
No?
me,
Yes.
to me, it's like a therapy. Jiu-jitsu, it keeps you calm. It keeps you it keeps me calm and focused. And like I need jiu-jitsu in my life. To me, it's a therapy.
Right. How does it translate? Would you say what you learn on the mat, how does it translate to real life, both for the kids and both for you as adults?
Well, I think like for Matthew, like, and when he was saying his story about how he got into that little shuffle at school, it was his first year at that middle school. So I always think there's going to be people that are going to try to test you. And I always tell Matthew, you know, obviously you have to defend yourself, because if you don't, then they're going to keep coming back. And, you know, Matthew is a super humble kid, like off the mats, like Matthew, I mean, he would never on the mat. I mean, Al, you've known Matthew for how many years now? Matthew will go to a tournament. You will never see that kid celebrate or be disrespectful and be like, ha ha, never. Matthew's just never been that type of competitor or grappler. That's just not who Matthew is. But being that it was his first year at that middle school, there's always going to be people that are going to try to test you. So, you know, Matthew did defend himself, and there was another incident that happened after that, that Matthew had to defend himself. But after that, like, Matthew didn't have any problems in the rest of the school year. No issues, no problems. You know, people stopped testing him because they knew they weren't going to be able to get away with it. So I think in some situations you do kind of have to defend yourself where they know that they need to, you know, that it's not going to work with this kid. Because I feel that there is a lot of kids that are getting bullied out there because they don't have, you know, the ability to defend themselves. Now, yes, Matthew's not going to go in there and start a fight and just, you know, bloody beat somebody down. Could he do that? Yes, but he's not going to do that.
He doesn't have to
defend himself. So I think, like, because he was able to defend himself, that avoided a lot of other issues and a lot of worse issues that could have happened. So jiu-jitsu definitely is something that, you know, Matthew's a very calm child when it comes to things like that. He doesn't look for fights. He's not out there, you know.
I mean, he's so physically imposing.
Instigating fights, but yes, sometimes you have to even step out of that calmness of jiu-jitsu and try to defend yourself, because if not, then people are going to just take advantage of it.
So Matt and Gabe, what off the mat and out of the school has jiu-jitsu given you for real life? How does it translate?
To be more disciplined, focus, listen.
Listening.
Stay more calm, patience.
Paying attention.
Learning.
Gabe?
Yeah, everything that Matt said. And
what about just like, you know, at home with your family and just with your friends? I mean, you guys are friends now as a result of like being training partners. What's that like?
I mean, everything that happens on the mat really does not affect us in real life. Like between us two, like if we roll and he submits me, or if I beat him by points in the match, that really does not affect our friendship.
Right. So it's healthy, teaches you healthy competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're working together and collaborating as friends, working towards a mutual goal, as opposed to, and you know, most guys, like when I was growing up, if your friend hit you or choked you or something like that, you'd feel some kind of way about it. Your ego would get away, right, Chino?
Yeah.
And like you might lose a friendship over it, you know, or you might get in fights all the time over it. But with you guys, every week you're trying to kill each other, you know, and it's really cool to see, right, Chino?
And they
Oh my
still
gosh,
love it. And off
And they
the mats,
love each other more.
They're competitive on the mats and brothers off the mats for
Brothers.
real.
Yeah, I
Right.
think like if it wasn't for jujitsu, like we would have never met you guys. Like the kids
No.
would have never met each other. They would have never crossed paths. I mean, just like look at that picture from the other day. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
it's
like
beautiful.
how old, and now look
6
at
years
them.
later.
Like they're
Yeah.
13. Like they're like these. They're getting so grown and like
Yeah.
Gabe's like a little man now. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy how fast time does go. But I mean, if it wasn't for jujitsu, like we would have never met each other. Like the kids would have
I
never,
would've-
met each other.
I met so many people from jujitsu.
Yeah.
Like I would have never thought I would have been traveling for tournaments all the way in California or Las Vegas. It's a blessing having jujitsu in my life because I
It
have
creates opportunity.
creates opportunities. Yes.
So you're saying you guys are bringing awareness to what jujitsu does. It brings humanity together.
Right.
You know, seeing that we're all brothers and sisters. You know,
Right.
learning to bring jujitsu not just on the mats but off the mats. If Chino and Liz, if you guys could answer the same question, the kids answered it with awesomeness. And if you guys have a different perspective to share, feel free, please.
As far as like what jujitsu, like as far as like the traveling and
No, yeah.
just
What did
bringing-
you guys
bringing
learn?
it to people together. And yeah, I mean, I think like I tell that to Matthew all the time. Like sometimes like, you know, a kid at that age, like Matthew's 13, Matthew's been training since he's like 4.5 years old. And Matthew very rarely will say like, oh, I don't feel like going to practice today. I mean, it's very rare, especially when it comes to jujitsu. Sometimes wrestling, he's like, oh, I'm just not feeling it today. But like jujitsu, Matthew has a passion for. But I always tell Matthew, I'm like, remember those, I said, like, I have talks with him and I tell him, Matthew, can you imagine if you didn't have jujitsu in your life? Like, go back and remember all the trips you took because we went to a jujitsu tournament. Like, not that we only go on trips just for jujitsu, but he's had a lot of opportunities because of jujitsu. He has been able to go to Vegas like 3 times. He's going in September again. He has went to California like 4 times.
Well, wait. He's going or we're going? Wait.
We're all going.
He's going or we're going?
Yes, we're going.
Got it. And why are we going? Why are we going? It's kind of historical, correct?
The biggest, the first,
Okay.
and the biggest no-gi tournament in the world.
There's no
First-
no-gi tournament.
For no-gi.
There's no big tournaments for no-gi for kids.
Okay, so for my audience that doesn't know, jujitsu is done with, you see this kimono, right? All right, and it's also done
With no-gi on.
without, right?
Uh,
It's also done without.
Mhm.
And this is the first ever world championship where they're going to allow kids and teens to compete without the kimono. So it's the big time, and it's going to be held in Las Vegas, September 15th.
Yeah.
And right now, the kids, both Matthew and Gabe, and some of the other kids that train with us in Allentown, are getting ready for this historic event. And it's a really big privilege to be, you know, win or lose, draw, whatever. It's a watershed landmark moment in children's grappling that they're allowing for kids to be given the opportunity to fight to become world champions without the uniform, Would you mind sharing a little bit about what that's like for you guys?
I think it's cool, like to be the first to do something that is probably going to be big in the future.
Yes. That's a
Well-
great picture game. Because I truly do believe, I believe that. I believe that this is gonna be like a historical thing for these kids. Like this is gonna be something that these kids are gonna remember, because if they stay
The
in,
first one.
if they stay in this sport, which I honestly, like in my heart, I know like Matthew will, and I hope the same for Gabe. Even if you have like your ups and downs through the years as you get older, but you find your way back. But I honestly do believe that ADCC, this first ever, them allowing kids for the first time ever to participate, I think is just gonna open up a lot more doors when it comes to the kids doing more no-gi tournaments and bigger ones. And I think like with everything that's like gonna happen that weekend, it's gonna be an awesome time for them. They're gonna be able to see a lot of the pros. They're gonna be able to, you know, meet and greet. They're gonna see their friends out there. I mean, they're gonna be able to watch some amazing matches on the weekend when the adults go. I think it's just gonna be something that these kids will always remember. And it's going to definitely be, I think, this is gonna be, it's gonna be like, this is the opening. This is like the floodgates. Like there's gonna be so many more because of this.
So, you know, the vision I see for kids jiu-jitsu could be like skateboarding. You know, at one point, skateboarding was like a fringe sport in the world, in the United States. And then through the efforts of kids doing that sport, it got sponsorship, it got eyeballs on it because they saw how exciting it was. Same thing for BMX, surfing, things like that were on the fringe. You know, really started here in the United States, mostly on the West Coast, some on the East Coast. And then it built momentum, and it actually, you know, it's huge now. Like Red Bull is a sponsor of that, breakdancing, a lot of things. And I think jiu-jitsu will go that route. And there's also talk that jiu-jitsu is going to be in the Olympics pretty soon. It's getting voted on. And I really see the possibility of our children being able to go to the Olympics to represent the United States in jiu-jitsu. Would you mind saying something about that?
Yeah, it would be awesome, man. If they could get jiu-jitsu to the Olympics, wow, that would be huge. Why? Because now kids they have something to look forward to other than traveling to compete. You actually can make it to the Olympics, just like all the Olympic huge names, you know, in the past.
Well, they have
Right.
judo. They have judo in the Olympics. So I
Right.
mean, it will be awesome if they can have a jiu-jitsu in the Olympics.
It would be
Absolutely.
awesome, man.
Absolutely.
That would be a game changer if they could put jiu-jitsu in the Olympics.
Would you guys say that BJJ, like, or the gi or the no gi? I would think that no gi personally would be more entertaining for Olympics, but would you
Of
say
course.
that both of them
Yes.
would be in the Olympics that you guys
Got
think?
it?
Personally, I don't see the no-gi getting in at all.
Yeah.
Just because of the traditions of martial arts, it will be the gi. If one of them is gonna get in, obviously we all will agree that no gi is the way to go because it's more exciting. There's no stalling. There's more action. It's just like
That's
balls
true.
to the walls. Let's go. It's
Yeah.
like wrestling
Yeah.
with submissions.
Yeah.
The gi, it's like
It looks
it's
like
a lot of
judo.
stalling.
It's too
But-
close to judo.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
Yeah.
because it is,
It's
like having
but
two
it's
judos.
because it's tradition, like wearing the gi is more traditional.
That's what we
I
make
can
it.
see that like maybe like that getting into the Olympics. The gi.
So one of the things that we're here to promote is basically the Saturday competition class for children that would like to attend. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that? You want to kind of put the bat signal out?
How can they
About
reach
that.
out? How can they find you guys
How can they
doing what
reach
you do?
out?
Find us on
Go ahead, Matt.
Instagram. Matthew BamBam. Always contact me.
On Instagram?
Yep. And let me know if you want to come down or not. And we'll let you know.
Okay, got it. And Liz and Chino, what's your
Yeah, so
contact
that,
information?
well, yeah, they can always contact Matthew BamBam on IG. Send a message if they want to come down and train, and we can share the details with them if they contact us. But pretty much Saturday's class, we run it as a comp class. We try not to hold back. It's a room full of kids that have the same goals, the same mindset. So it's really not for a beginner jiu-jitsu practitioner. It's you know, it's intense. It's for competitors. It's for kids that, again, like I said, have the same goals, same mindset. And you're coming there to get better, learn, leave your egos at home. Because
Yeah, leave your egos. Right, Gabe?
It's more to get these kids better. You know, a long time ago, like when Chino and I first started doing the Saturday class, you know,
We
in the
used to
beginning,
wake up every Sunday, and we used to drive for an hour and 40 minutes.
To New
Now,
York.
a lot of people don't know that. We did that for years.
and we
We
decided
used
like,
to wake up early every Sunday. We used to drive an hour and 45 minutes every Sunday. Like people wake up and go to church. We did that with Matthew for 3.5 years. We did that. We drove an hour and 45 minutes to another location just to train, just so Matthew could have some decent training. We
Yeah.
did that for years. This is the biggest fall, right? In my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of schools don't cater to high level kids. They don't. They just don't cater to.
Right.
I understand it because me and my wife and Matthew, we take Matthew to these big tournaments. These kids can't do regular jiu-jitsu classes out. You understand that because you've been coming and bringing game for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, and then you see the difference between the way we run that comp class and then when you take them to his regular schools, it's completely different. And in my opinion, it's a huge downfall. A lot of schools do not cater to let's just call it this way, to kids that like to compete at the national level. A lot of schools don't cater to them. Yeah. They just don't cater. Like you got to treat these kids like run a class like you run an adult class. Like I run that kids comp class like I would run an adult competition class.
The things he teaches for the kids class, he teaches for the adults class.
Yeah, I teach the same stuff in my advanced no-gi class. Same stuff. The same thing I'm teaching them, I'm teaching the kids on Saturdays.
Yeah, you told me. I remember I was in class. You mentioned that, and I appreciate that about you. Keeping it balanced with teaching the kids and the adults. You don't look at the age as a thing to separate jiu-jitsu. You're teaching all.
Yes.
But I have a question in regards to that. You mentioned that other schools don't cater to this method of teaching. Why do you think that's so? Like, why do you think they're separating kids and adults in a way? I don't know.
What I see, right? No. It's like there's not a lot of kids out there that come. Like you can't go. You don't go to the average school. They're not gonna have 5-7 kids competing at the national level. So I understand that. So they're not gonna cater to one kid in your whole school. One kid that competes at the national level.
Right.
Well, I see like because that's actually a good question. I honestly like, yes, some of the bigger schools, like you have like Atos. I mean, they have like a kids program of like
kids.
200,
300
kids. So out of those kids, yes, you might have 7, 10, 15 kids.
And they cater,
but
they
an
help
average dojo
they don't have that
doesn't have that many students, you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 kids at that school.
At the most.
So pretty much like every kid from those, like every kid, a lot of the kids that come to our Saturday class, they were the best kid at their school.
And they meet up on
I
Saturdays.
don't think the dojo owner doesn't want to cater to them. I think that the schools, there's just not enough demand. There's more kids that want to do it for fun.
Recreational. Self-defense
like,
twice a week, and that's okay.
And they can't focus on one kid that wants to compete when they have like 30 other kids that just want to go there for fun.
This is our opinion and what we see.
Would you like to provide a phone number in case somebody would like to call and get a little bit more information about logistics?
Or an email. whatever's more secure for you guys to share.
Or
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
or-
the best way is through Matthew BamBam
Yeah,
on IG.
That's how everybody.
Okay.
That's how everybody gets a hold of
okay.
I just
through
followed him.
Matthew's page. Matthew BamBam on Instagram.
Follow
Okay.
him. Follow Matthew BamBam on Instagram.
Mhm.
All right. That being said, Grace, is there something you'd like to promote as well? Your phone, your thing's muted. You're muted.
Well, not really. I just want to acknowledge you both because, having a kid on that level, it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of commitment. So that speaks highly of you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, on that note, I want to wrap up this interview and thank everyone that came, my co-hosts, my guests, and again, this podcast is dedicated to making a difference with people. We hope that by sharing the possibility of jiu-jitsu and what jiu-jitsu provides for individuals and for families, and it made a difference with the listener. And I'll see you in the funny papers.
One thing
Right.
before we leave out. Rest in peace, Langelo. We just lost him to a murder.
Oh yeah.
And rest in peace to him, man. We lost a legend in the jiu-jitsu community, man.
Yeah. For those that don't know, I think he's about 8-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. He was at a nightclub about a week ago in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and an off-duty police officer was getting out of hand and bullying someone. And so Leandro Lo took him down and held him down. And he said, all right, it's fine. You can't, don't worry about it. He let him go. The guy went out to his car, got a gun, and came back into the nightclub and shot him in the face and in the head several times and murdered him in cold blood when he was nice enough not to hurt him. So, for those of us that, have felt and been the victims of violence and crime, my heart goes out to all of you. Rest in peace, Leandro Lo. You're a legend and a beautiful human being. And see you on the other side. See you in the funny papers. Bye, everyone.
Peace and love, everybody.